I was born in Groningen. It was in the northern part of the Netherlands. I didn't fit. I mean, society is not open to people asking questions. And I only had questions. And my teachers didn't like questions. My teachers liked people who did what they were told. And I never did what I was told. Because I asked questions very often where the teachers didn't know an answer to. No, there's nothing worse than a 12-year-old asking you and you can't answer it. I mean, they didn't like that. They tried to change the subject. They called me crazy. It was not one teacher. It was several teachers. They would try to diminish me, make me disappear, shut up, put me in the corner, back to the class. They tried everything. So that's one of the big reasons I left. And it goes still much deeper, but it's overall, I was different. From early childhood, I was fascinated by movies because it took me out of myself and showed me all the possibilities in the world. I could become a detective, a cowboy, a soldier, a jet pilot, a big white hunter. So I followed it. I became a soldier. I became a big white hunter. I've done everything I wanted to do, which I saw in the movies. I was looking for something else, and they had the war in Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam. And then I met the usual suspects, Sean Flynn, Donald Stone, Nick Wheeler, all the so-called resident photographers. We all lived there. We didn't visit for 2 weeks and then went home. No, we all lived there. And the only way to get around Vietnam, or the best way to get around, is with the press card. Then one time I picked up a 9mm Browning in the field. Dana Stone wanted a weapon because he was thinking of going to India, and he heard it could be dangerous. He wanted a weapon for that. And he had a Nikon camera, and we traded. And that was really my first professional camera. Oh, it was a way to get where I wanted to go. I mean, I've been places where I would never, especially with my education, I would never been able to get. In combat, I've always been scared shitless the night before when I knew I was going out on an operation. Afraid of losing an arm or a leg, not so much of death, but you know, the possibility you might spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. But once it happened, once you were in the action, you worried more about your cameras than about your life. And if you survived it, you had that rush of sliding down the mountain. You had survived, and some people hadn't survived. And while everybody went ra-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, I went click, click, click. And that really made me feel stupid at times. Because you also want to dance. You also want to go ra-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. But I've never picked up a weapon. But there are several photographers and journalists who picked up weapons and were killed. Because they also wanted to go. They wanted to be part of the group.
Het Nederlands Fotomuseum bewaart het archief van Gerretsen sinds 1995. Het past eigenlijk perfect in onze collectie. Onze collectie heeft ongeveer 160 fotografenarchieven, waaronder het archief van Ed van der Elske, van Cas Oorthuis, van Ata Kando en van de onlangs overleden Jacqueline Hassink. En Chess is echt een oeuvre wat er heel mooi tussen past, wat allerlei verschillende aspecten uit de collectie van Nederlandse fotografie samenbrengt. Zijn oeuvre, daar zit een soort van beetje rare tegenstelling in, waarbij het begint als echt oorlogsfotograaf. Het meest bekende is een werk uit Chili, 1973. Hij was daar bij de coup van Pinochet. En een van zijn beroemdste foto's, dat is een foto waarbij Pinochet met een zonnebril met een aantal generaals achter zich een soort statieportret krijgt. Nou, dat is echt een beeld wat in de wereld is gegaan als het portret van een dictator, een arrogante dictator. Daarna gaat hij dat werk doen voor Apocalypse Now, waar eigenlijk oorlog en Hollywood samenkomt. En daarna wordt hij Hollywood-fotograaf. En Hollywood-fotograaf is hij eigenlijk nog een hele tijd. Hij heeft een eigen persbureau en fotografeert alle grote sterren van de wereld. Wij zijn er voor het bewaren van het erfgoed van Nederland. Van nu en voor de toekomst. En we willen graag dat dat erfgoed getoond wordt. En dat doe je soms met de fotograaf zelf. Maar dat doe je ook heel vaak met mensen van buiten die heel veel weten over zo'n film.
Het zijn zoveel mooie dingen die samenkomen. De film is 40 jaar oud. Jas komt naar Nederland, hij wil met ons samenwerken. Er zijn zoveel dia's, foto's die nog nooit zijn gezien. Dus we dachten, ja, we moeten hier iets mee doen.
En dan niet alleen de 7 foto's die we normaal, 7 tot 10 foto's die we normaal kwijt kunnen. Maar eigenlijk wilden kijken hoe we dit de bioscoop in konden trekken om het op zo'n groot mogelijk scherm te presenteren.
So one time we were discussing where I'd been with other photographers, and one of them remarked, if you can't find a ward, why don't you go to Hollywood? Find a ward there, which I ultimately did. I liked him. I liked him a lot. I mean, the first day I arrived, I was asked to take some pictures of him and the new arrivals. There was a party thrown for the crew. And the next morning, I get up and I start looking around the set, and all of a sudden, Francis walks straight up to me and says, I had a dream about you last night. I mean, I'm on probation. I have an agreement for 1 month. If they don't like my work or my attitude or my personality, I'm gone. So he comes up to me and says, I had a dream about you last night. Okay. I was hanging from by your camera straps from the 30th floor of a skyscraper. What did he mean by that? He turns around and walks off. Okay, that's Francis. I mean, I think he wanted me insecure. He wanted me on my toes. He got that. And then after a month, exactly the same thing again. He comes up to me and says, I don't particularly like you, but I think you're a good photographer, therefore you can stay. Turns around and walks off. Because I think there were only 5 of us with actual Vietnam experience. But no, I liked him. I liked getting along with him. He had a good sense of humor. He was always willing to listen. He wouldn't necessarily do what you advised. I mean, he's like a military general. I mean, they keep rephrasing the question till they get the answer they want. The first AD came up to me and said, how do you dress a photographer? Okay, Francis wants to know. So I saw Francis and I told him. And he was quickly bored. And then a couple of days later, the prop master came up to me and said, I need your cameras. And I said, then you have to buy me new ones. Yeah, no problem. I also need your watch. Brando has a Rolex, and if he loses his watch, I want a replacement. I said, sure, but I have to go to Hong Kong and buy new equipment. Yeah, no problem. Another similarity with Vietnam. The money spent, it's unbelievable. So I got all new equipment, I got a new watch, I got everything, a quick trip to Hong Kong and back. And then Brando came and he had a different type of watch. A couple of days later, Dennis appeared. I was asked to come to Francis, and he showed me Dennis and said, is this what a photojournalist looked like? And Dennis had a headband, and well, that makes you a target. So you wouldn't necessarily do that. Then he had a colorful thing on and makes you a target again. But he had tiger stripe pants. But the outfit overall looked good. The first time I saw him, he had only one camera. And he had, at the time, you had this aluminum canisters for a film, and he had taped them. He had about 5 canisters on each side of the camera strap. And I mean, I've never seen a professional photographer with films taped. He said, well, this is the way I carry my film, and I am a professional photographer. I have my pictures in the museum. And it took Francis a week to convince Dennis not to tape his, and also to carry more than one camera. The 3 black cameras were mine. But in the end, Dennis was directable, opposed to the other gentlemen. Brando came, I think it was in the early afternoon, and there were, I don't know, about 20 crew members on the set. And Brando came up to each and every one of us, and by looking past you, he said, my name is Marlon Brando, like nobody knew. And we all expected him to start working early the next morning. But we were told, whispered, he has pain in his big toe, he can't work. So here are X amount of people, all twiddling their thumbs, all waiting for Mr. Brando to show up for work. The second day, he had pain in his stomach. And the third day, Francis and Brando rewrote the script together, and he started work. But that didn't mean that he would learn his lines, because Brando doesn't learn his lines. People hold up cue cards, and when Brando looks up like this, or he looks down like this, he's reading his lines from the palm of his hand. And I think even often then he wouldn't read his lines, he would improvise. You know, when you're different, you act different, behave different, you draw somebody's curiosity. And he drew my curiosity. If he had been to Vietnam, he wouldn't answer. I asked him several times, he never answered. And he would sit for hours in the lotus position, cradling that shotgun, staring into nothingness. Even when the camera was a half a mile away, he'd be sitting there for hours with 1,000-mile stare, not talking to anybody, not answering to your questions, just being the ultimate actor. The scene of Martin Sheen, where he gets drunk and goes outside himself. I mean, he's drunk, he hits the mirror, there's all kinds of things. And the word is that Francis made him do that. Francis, I mean, Martin Sheen got himself drunk. He wanted to be a movie star, and he wanted to do this scene right. I mean, he's an adult. I mean, we're adults. Either you say you don't want to do it, or you do it. At the same time, Martin Sheen was dragged through the mud. Mud was coming out of his nose at the end. I mean, it was not clean Hollywood mud, it was real mud. He also, with this camouflage paint, he comes out of the muddy water, you know, with the dry eyes in the water and smoke and yellow smoke and all kinds of... He didn't particularly like it. He said, yeah, is this hygienic? But he did it. I would say 99% of the other actors wouldn't have done it. The thing is, as a still photographer, you're not part of the movie. Nobody sees you as part of the movie. You're a totally outsider. So you have really no friends because you're supposedly at that time you were part of the camera team. And I got along well with Storaro. I mean, he helped me a lot, and I learned a lot from him. How to see light, what to look for, like the scene of Kilgore having a barbecue. I mean, he wondered how he could lit that in a Vietnam situation. I told him that many a base camp had lights on the perimeter. And lights on the perimeter, he put lights out. I didn't really see the difference between dark and light. I just shot what was there, and I couldn't influence it. And here we're in the temple, and Storaro lighting, very light and dark and shadowy. And there were about 20 people, 20 of the crew in the temple, and Brando, and I think Sheen was there too. I'm on the right side of the camera. And somebody yells, rolling, camera gets rolling, and he takes me, he yells, stop. And all the crew members wonder what the hell is going on. He takes me and says, I lit the scene for this side of the camera, not for that side. Okay. Okay, rolling. Again, it didn't make me particularly endeared to the crew. I mean, here's everybody's working, and the son of a bitch photographer but the thing is, I have nothing to do with the camera. I have nothing to do with directing. I have nothing to do with the acting. I don't plant flowers. I don't do makeup. I take pictures. So, I come after everybody has finished their work, and the actors come in, and I leave before everybody, so people are kind of annoyed at that too. Here you come late and you leave early, and I had one guy, the nephew, I think it was a nephew of Sam Bottoms, was working on the set. And maybe I had a good acquaintanceship with him. And I think because of me, he became involved in documentary work. And later, a couple of years later, he was murdered doing a documentary on drugs in Argentina. So what I do is I take the most important actors, put them in a scene which more or less represents the film. So a lot of the pictures you see of Apocalypse Now are not part of the film. I set it up because I thought it would sell. So publicity, but not scenes of the film. It represents the feeling of the movie, but it's not a scene from the movie. And I think when you, as a different generation, look at Apocalypse Now, you just not see the stills of the film, but you see what I thought the film represented more or less. So you've got now a different look on the film than I think people got before. And therefore, I think this is exciting. This is nice. I like it. I loved every minute. I didn't like the boredoms, and there was a lot of boredom, but I really liked Vietnam too, and there was also a lot of boredom. But the thing is, in life, in life there's a lot of boredom. So I went from real to real, from reality to fantasy. It was fun. It lasted. And when I got fed up, I bought a sailboat and spent now almost 30 years on the water. To become perfect at something, you have to concentrate and do it over and over again, and it takes years. I was never interested in becoming perfect. I was interested in doing the things I enjoy doing. Because I think there is no such thing as a bad experience. From every experience you can learn. It makes you a better person. It makes you understand the world more. I don't understand people, but they fascinate me.